and welcome. My name is Romit Sipkar, and I would like to walk you through the first of our dystopian negotiation series by ECI. Today, we look at matters regarding the tiny microstate of utopia. First, let's have a look at the general information for some background and context. Facts that should matter to you are that the nation of Utopia is a very wealthy microstate. It's an island of pristine natural beauty. For most of its wealth and resources, it's dependent heavily on global tourism. Concerns that face Utopia due to the pandemic is the closing of borders around the world, bringing the hospitality and service industry in Utopia to a halt. This has resulted in Utopia's foreign exchange reserves to be running exceedingly low, for it is dependent on foreign tourists coming in to replenish the amounts. Along with concerns of foreign exchange reserves, unemployment has now hit a record high, with now laid off individuals, especially in the arts and entertainment sector, spending their time building bonds of community on the island and playing and performing to keep spirits up. This, however, cannot be expected to continue indefinitely. Thus, a plan has been drafted by the government of Utopia to slowly reopen the country's borders and welcome in new guests. The plan, however, has had serious concerns raised by local industry and representatives. This includes the necessity of social distancing, the need to have masks on at all hours when in public. There are concerns that tourists who come here for the pretty views and pictures wouldn't like half their face covered. And beyond that, social distancing, including mandatory gaps in outdoor seating and retail and restaurant spaces, means that retail space in the country, which is already at a pretty premium, will cost everyone quite dearly. Popular nighttime activities such as clubbing are, of course, entirely prohibited, which has such business owners up in arms. The Chamber of Commerce for Utopia has been meeting with the government for the past 2 weeks to work out possible solutions to this. In these 2 weeks, the sentiment that has emerged is that the nation of Utopia is suffering needlessly in silent solidarity. As an island nation, which is in fact paradise, it has had no reported cases of utopia of COVID at all, and it seems that these measures are seemingly unnecessary. Beyond that, there is also acknowledgement of the concern that until the world at large recovers from COVID, global borders are unlikely to open up, which means tourism will not revert back to its original levels for a very, very long time. All Utopia can count on right now are the very high net worth individuals that have the individual resources to come in, party, and have a good time. Therefore, to solve these problems, a radical solution has been proposed by the Chamber of Commerce, which is to invite U2, YOU2, a global musical phenomenon and mega band, to visit the island of Utopia, rent it out in its entirety, to record what they like to call a kind of conceptual album. The state of Utopia, however, is gravely concerned by this idea, with the notion of selling off their land like this, or even renting it for a short period of time, to be construed as a loss of their entire sovereignty. Matters have now come to a head, with representatives from both sides having an emergency meeting to resolve these concerns. Now, on to the confidentials. At this meeting, we are introduced to Marlene. Marlene is the head of state for Utopia, a bit of a populist right-winger with authoritarian tendencies. Marlene, however, has great love for her country, and her patriotism is something that she doesn't allow to be questioned at all. It's the nation's best interest she has at heart, and therefore, once her mind is set to something, it is very, very difficult to change indeed. Change, however, when it has been achieved, means that the results are rather swift. Marlene is not one to waste time dilly-dallying about. The biggest concern facing Marlene is the alarming drop in foreign exchange reserves. This is a situation that needs to be rectified, and Marlene doesn't fancy the idea of approaching the World Bank or other international organizations for aid to remedy the situation. She feels that the conditions of loans granted by these organizations are oppressive in nature and further neo-colonial ideas. In that respect, the proposition of inviting you two over is in fact quite likable to Molly. She is, however, rather upset that the idea was not hers and that she is not able to take credit for it in its entirety. Marlene's proposed plan of action is this: the loss of sovereignty that everyone fears bringing in U2 will have, she believes, has already taken place. The global financial crisis in 2008 resulted in almost all independent businesses being taken over, especially in the hospitality and tourism industry, by major firms. Big hotel chains from across the world now own the majority of economic engines of growth in U2. This concerns Marlene. Marlene believes that should the pandemic continue, these big firms will be able to weather their losses. And as more and more businesses go under, the entire nation of Utopia will be controlled by these near monopolies. Therefore, Marlene, in exercise of emergency powers granted to her by the Constitution of Utopia, which include the social distancing measures proposed, plans to take over these hotels. There is an idea of expropriation and turning these luxury hotels and rooms into medical tourism facilities. Marlene believes that these are going to be rest and recoupment lodges where individuals can come, relax, and take in the fresh air and the sea and recover from COVID in the lap of luxury at their own pace. It would, of course, be very difficult to pull something like this off. Therefore, at today's meeting, Marlene's top priority is also to be able to convince the chambers of commerce to grant support to this idea so that Marlene is able to transition Utopia from an economy entirely dependent on tourism to one that works with medical tourism as well and not just leisure. On the other side of the negotiating table today, we have Mr. Reginald Brusket. Reginald represents the Chamber of Commerce, which proposed the idea of inviting the band YOU2 to Utopia. This, however, in truth, is a Hail Mary. It is a bluff to bring the government to the negotiating table in all seriousness, but they are not certain of how they can deliver on this promise. There are concerns that the band itself being home to the country currently with the third largest number of active COVID cases, it will be impossible to open borders and bring them back to Utopia. Therefore, this is not a solution that they are very willing to discuss or take seriously. The evolution of other options or ideas would be something that they're most open to. Beyond that, there is a strong belief that the Chamber of Commerce holds that bringing in U2 or coming up with a possible solution like this would have tremendous long-term benefits. And a comparison is made to Game of Thrones and the fact that locations for shooting for Game of Thrones became exceedingly popular destinations for fans of the show and tourists to come visit. The long-term impact, therefore, is seen as quite favorable should the Chamber of Commerce, along with the government, manage to invite the band U2 over after all. There are instructions to remain open to suggestions and work a solution out. Beyond that, restrictive measures the government is planning on introducing, such as social distancing, wearing masks, and so on and so forth, go against the very tenets of the hospitality industry. The service sector at large, customer is king, and it couldn't be more true for hoteliers. Therefore, the curtailment of individual freedom and choice that these regulations require is something that is deeply frowned on by your stakeholders. Beyond that, there is a firm belief within the operators of small businesses all around the island that work towards health and wellness. That physical health is one thing, but the battle against corona, which has been continuing for over 6 months now, is really going to be one for mental fortitude. And therefore, they strongly say that there is no good substitute at all, not even a vaccine, compared to yoga lessons, early morning Tai Chi, and spa sessions designed to relax your mind, expand horizons, and allow you to think. Health is entirely well, but the consideration, whether it's physical or mental, is something that we suspect both parties are going to differ. With all of these facts in mind, the negotiation should now proceed. We hope you enjoy taking a look at how things go. Thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions, please leave them for us.